Control 727. There's going to be 2 on top of the car, still in water, and there's going to be 1 baby that's missing at this time.
Copy 2 on top of the car and confirming 1 missing.
Affirm.
Super.
All right, picture this horrible scene. It is late in the evening of Saturday, March 8th, 2025. It's around 11 p.m. at night. Obviously, it's dark out, especially in this area of California. Juliette Marie Acosta, only 26 years old. She's 5 feet 2 inches tall, pretty petite, 120 pounds. She has blonde hair and brown eyes. She leaves her uncle's gorgeous $1.3 million house. It's a home in Hickman, California, sitting on more than 1 acre. And she drives crazily down this road, Arlberg Road. She hits an object on her left as she races down the isolated farm road. It's probably pretty dark.
We are on Arlberg Road right now. Police say that the driver was heading this direction southbound. And as you can see right here, police also mentioned that it sideswiped this telephone pole, taking a chunk of wood out of this telephone pole right here. And you can see the tire marks right here, ultimately going southbound on Arlberg Road and leading to that canal.
Juliette's 4-year-old daughter, Reagan Heron, she was strapped in the car seat in her mom's Subaru SUV. Now, according to the below 4-page criminal complaint, Juliette at this point had a blood alcohol level of 0.23, which is almost 3 times the legal limit. When she reached the end of the road, headed toward a canal, she didn't make a left turn onto Canal Bank Road, nor did she make a right turn onto Hall Road like she could have. Instead, she kept apparently driving straight over that little embankment into Turlock Main Canal. She landed in the canal. From what I hear, the car went topsy-turvy. Juliette made it out alive. Her daughter Reagan, however, was strapped into her car seat. Of course, all the first responders responded to the scene. It was horrific. And where did cops find Juliette? No longer at the scene. She was taking a bath in that nearby luxurious home as her daughter remained inside that SUV, trapped. So allegedly, Juliette was first at the scene, but then she left. After all, it was only a 3-minute walk back down to her uncle's 4,089 square foot home, ultra custom family home, in a shady, peaceful setting on 17.85 acres. That's a lot of acres. And it's a gorgeous home and a gorgeous bathroom, by the way. I looked at all the photos. Perhaps Juliette was trying to sober up. Perhaps she was trying to clean herself off from the canal water. Who knows how dirty that is? But the thought of her daughter still being in that dark water is so haunting while Juliette went and took a bath. That's why I'm dubbing her the Bath Mom.
It's TT fire down south to 1179 with a possible opinion 7B Canal Bank and...
Please, thank you.
Got 3. If Q7 or 9Q9 are close, they can go code 3 as well.
Cover. Clear code 3 if you're available. Start towards a 1179 with possible opinion Canal Bank in Albury for a vehicle into canal with drivers documents to get out of vehicle.
Control, that guy. Can you start air in case we need a water rescue?
Control 727. There's going to be 2 on top of the car, still in water, and there's going to be 1 baby that's missing at this time.
Copy 2 on top of the car and confirming 1 missing.
Affirm.
Super.
So what actually happened that night? I dug and dug and dug through dispatch audio. I had to know more about this case. I heard the words, start water rescue.
Control, that guy. Can you start air in case we need a water rescue?
Those heartbreaking 3 words can be heard via the myriad of recordings. You can hear a lot of stuff going on that night, and it's hard to pick out what's actually isolated to this incident, but that's what I heard, start water rescue, and the myriad of recordings from the Stanislaus County Sheriff and Fire Dispatch that same night. So Juliette had allegedly driven her SUV, her Subaru SUV, recklessly before it ended up landing in a canal along that Canal Bank Road east of Hickman, California. I've been using Apple Maps and Google Maps to try and recreate what might have happened that night, what the road looked like, what a witness is saying, what ear witnesses are saying, because people heard the crash. The crash was reported at approximately 11 p.m. on that Arlberg Road, where it ends at Canal Bank Road at the Turlock Main Canal. I wonder how many times Juliette had driven that way from her uncle's home. There was a birthday party celebration going on that night down that road. How well is it lit? Did she think she was still driving straight on a bumpy road? It brings to mind some horrific cases. Was it accidental, like I believe the case of Kylie Rodney out in California was, when she drove into the water unwittingly, unintentionally? Or could it be more akin to Susan Smith, the woman who just let her 2 sons drown because she didn't want the children, and the man she was having an affair with didn't want children? Where will this case land? Well, Juliette, she was rescued by her uncle, Brandon Angle. Brandon Angle. He's the one who lives only a minute drive away from the location where Juliette and her daughter went into the water. Brandon helped a sheriff's deputy get Reagan out of her car seat. Now, the bravery of these men going into those dark waters was noted by a witness.
Is the baby strapped in? Or should we be looking in the water? Like, I didn't know what to do. She just stared at me. I didn't know she wouldn't answer me. And so we didn't know where to look. And he didn't think twice about it, and he jumped right in, and it seemed like it was just a few seconds, and he knew right where the baby was. And then he just pulled her out.
A woman said she was standing there. She was trying to talk to Juliette. She was trying to ask her if the child was in the water, in the car, or anything. And I remember this witness said she saw those men show up and just go immediately into that water trying to save Reagan without any question, without any hesitation. If they had fear of jumping into a dark canal, obviously they didn't let it stop them.
How deep is the canal? And is it possible that the 4-year-old is still inside the vehicle?
But despite their heroic efforts, the little girl Reagan died the next day at the Memorial Medical Center in Modesto. Now, the report says that Juliette, quote, escaped the car. Reagan was stuck in her car seat inside the fully submerged vehicle. She was removed by a sheriff's deputy and her great uncle who lives nearby, but she died the next day at a Modesto hospital, the CHP says. So we have the CHP on this case, California Highway Patrol, we have sheriffs, there's probably other entities that responded, maybe fire. Sadly, Reagan would have turned 5 years old on July 8th, 2025, and she's never gotten that chance, this beautiful little girl. So that's the question that's arising. Was this a tragic accident like Juliette's lawyer and her grandmother are claiming? Or was this somehow done on purpose? If not premeditated, then with the malice aforethought that she's being charged with? Well, there's more information emerging about Juliette and the tumultuous relationship she had with her child's father. His name is Gage. So I can't help but ask the question many people are asking, was this kind of done on purpose or just recklessly, or was it just a tragic accident like her lawyers just kind of trying to claim it is? So this is a powerful story of an alleged rich and powerful family, and this tragic tale really grew legs with the help of social media, putting pressure on authorities and the public to hold Juliette accountable for her daughter's demise. So let's take a look at how this horrible case went completely viral. And it grew from the story of a young mom who had this accident. She got out on bail on a felony DUI charge, to a story now of a mom facing life in prison for murder and 8 total charges, and how people on social media are taking sides. 40 of her family members are showing up at court. There's a lot going on here. So Juliette was initially just booked on a felony drunk driving charge, and she was released on bail.
California Highway Patrol arrested Acosta for felony DUI. She was released on bail today.
And as you can imagine, outrage erupted, and this story started, bubbling up. I heard about it. I started requesting everything, body cam videos, charging documents, whatever I could get out of California, who are kind of notoriously known for not really giving up a lot of information in Freedom of Information Act requests. People began blowing up Reddit with rumors of of how the Acosta family allegedly gets away with stuff. There's a story of Juliette beating up her childhood or high school bully. In high school, it made the rounds. I think I even found the article, but of course she was a juvenile, so she wasn't named then. But some folks, defended Juliette. They're like, this girl was her bully. She beat her up. Some people are like, Juliette and her sisters are mean girls or whatever. And some people are like, no. Others are defending her, the whole family. Others are maligning them. And this traumatic and dramatic relationship with her baby's father is also emerging. And that's where the questions lie, especially in the last text messages Juliette sent her baby's father. People are wondering, wait a minute, was this more of a purposeful act or what? Wednesday, March 12th, 2025, about 4 days after this tragic crash, 3 days after Reagan lost her life, a petition was started. People didn't want to see Juliette just walk away from this. The Change.org petition is named Ensure Justice is Served and Prosecute Juliette Acosta for DUI Homicide. And the last time I checked, it had gained nearly 4,000 signatures. The petition read in part, Juliette Acosta, 26, of Oakdale, California, has a track record of reckless behavior, ultimately enabled by her family. That's what the petition writer claims. Her family, whose money and connections have repeatedly gotten Juliette out of trouble. Juliette felt untouchable, and devastatingly, this mentality was projected onto her daughter, a 4-year-old angel who is no longer with us due to her mother's selfish and unimaginable decision to drive drunk. Juliette is already bailed out of jail as her family scrambles to cover up the crime and lessen her charges. Indeed, some people were on Reddit and different social media platforms like, here's her mugshot, share it far and wide. They're trying to hide this mugshot. They're trying to keep it so hush-hush. And I will tell you, that is my pet peeve when certain cases happen, whether they're accidental, criminal, whatever. I hate it when it's difficult to get the booking photo. Now, by Friday, March 14th, 2025, Reddit starts heating up about the tragedy. So there's this thread just called Juliette Acosta, and someone wrote, so I've been going down a rabbit hole with the recent DUI crash that happened last Saturday with Juliette Acosta and her 4-year-old daughter. I'm on the Stanislaw News Facebook group and saw both sides of the little girl's family fighting. And I was wondering if anyone knows anything about the skeletons in the Acosta family. Now, I've link to all my sources below so you can go read the whole thing because it really goes in depth. I'm just afraid, they wrote, with this family's power, this post is saying that she might get off pretty easy. Anyone know anything? And they go on to say all of the family and friends in the comments section defending Juliette's actions need to reevaluate themselves. This person thinks no one is going to sympathize with her because she made the horrible choice to drink and drive. It makes me think that you all normalize this type of dangerous behavior, and that's why you want everyone to feel bad for her. Indeed, I don't know how far of a drive Juliette had. It's just so dangerous. But when you think of 3 times the legal limit, that's pretty scary. It's one thing to do that to yourself, to put yourself in that dangerous situation, and your 4-year-old daughter in the back seat in such danger, and everyone else on the road who she might have run into, or even the first responders who just without a thought dove into that dark water to try and rescue the little girl. This person went on to write about Juliette's baby's father, Gage. They wrote, I don't care if Gage wasn't in the daughter's life or if Hope, I don't know if that's his other daughter, never met her. She is still his daughter and the sister to their unborn child, so indeed he's having a baby with his girlfriend, and that child died unexpectedly, they're talking about Reagan here, because of her mother's reckless actions. He could be the worst dad in the world, but he is still not responsible for her death. Also defending her by saying people don't know the whole story of what happened that night doesn't matter because we all know the result. Well, I still want to know all the details, and it'll be interesting at the end to see how her lawyer is defending Juliette. No one forces you to get in the car with your 4-year-old daughter and drive while you're drunk. That's what this Redditor wrote. I guess I'm glad she has people who still love her after what she caused, because no one outside of her inner circle is going to forget what she did. So Reddit was popping off. This was getting more attention. So finally, April 9th, 2025 at 3:19 p.m. After more than 1 month after the tragedy occurred, and controversy is swelling, a warrant was executed. It was executed in Stanislaus County for a night service arrest of Juliette. Night service. So see, I do believe social media has an impact. I was watching this, I think his name is Angry Cop. He did a great video. It was pretty funny. It said something like how net sleuths or web sleuths or different people online, why cops hate them. He did a funny reaction to a crime case. And I can see what he means when people call in bad tips or get in the way of officers and investigators. But in instances like this, the people who started this change.org petition, the people who blew this case up on Reddit, the people on social media who started sharing the story, indeed may have put more pressure on investigators to eventually arrest this girl. Maybe if this story stayed quiet and no one had caught on to it, Juliette might have gotten away with a DUI felony, and whoops, it's an accident, and oops, too bad my daughter died, and that's it. I don't know how she feels. I don't want to malign her. I want to always keep neutral and deal with the facts, but I can't help but thinking of the terror, the complete abject terror and horror this little girl must have felt. Just 4 years old, cognizant enough to know what was going on. These are the cases I pray somehow miraculously Jesus just snatches the little child up before they feel any pain. I know it's crazy to think that way, but it helps me get through some of these cases instead of the intrusive thoughts that make you think of especially the children that suffer. Every time I see a Volkswagen Tiguan, like yesterday, I think Gannon Stauch. I can't help but think it. It's just these cases stay with you. April 11th, 2025, Juliette is finally arrested. So Juliette was arrested in a San Francisco hotel downtown after she tried to flee, according to the Stanislaus County District Attorney's Office. But her lawyer disputes this claim, saying, she wasn't trying to flee. She planned to turn herself in later that day. Defense attorneys are going to do their best at defending. Also, the DA's office said that Juliette's father, Clifford Acosta Jr., was detained on suspicion of aiding his daughter. Now, I've heard people online saying, the parents should be arrested and they helped and whatever. I don't know what Juliette's parents did or didn't do, and I haven't found any arrest records or arrest details or arrest complaints for them. If I do, I'll pop them on the screen, but I've only dove into Juliette's case. So I saw indeed she has an in-custody status. She was booked April 11th, they say, around, midnight, in the Stanislaus Adult Detention Facility. It's in Modesto, California. Now, Tuesday, April 15th, 2025, Juliette shows up in court and 40 family members show up. I was pretty amazed at her support system. And in that case, and we don't have courtroom video, I don't know in this case if we're going to get any courtroom video. I hate when judges don't allow cameras inside and we have to rely on whatever we can get from the court. If we can get transcripts or if we can get audio, maybe I can try to get that if it's allowed. We have to rely on any local news stations who go there, or even net sleuths who end up going there and report from outside or can tweet or whatever is allowed. But it says that Juliette Acosta of Oakdale declined to enter a plea on Tuesday to murder and other charges involving her young daughter. She's charged with, and we'll go over some of her charges, murder, drunk driving, and other counts. She has a lot of counts in the death of her daughter. Now, her arraignment has been postponed to May 7th, and that's at the request of her defense attorney, Gil Samara, because he's saying, look, there's a lot more information we have to discover. But Juliette reportedly wore a jail uniform with red and white stripes, and her wrists were shackled in handcuffs, and it was a brief first appearance in that Stanislaus Superior Court. Judge Valley Israels ordered her to remain in county jail on a no bail warrant. So this time she's not bailing out anytime soon. So her family's money, I'm assuming, paid for this great defense attorney, but can't put up any money for bail because there is none. It says about 40 family members filled the courtroom, but they would not speak with reporters afterwards. However, at least one person wore a shirt that read, "Justice for Reagan." That leads me to believe not everyone's in that courtroom just like, "We support Juliette, let her out," or, some people probably are. It said "Justice for Reagan" around a photo of the little girl, and it's the same photo that appears on Reagan's GoFundMe page. It's a GoFundMe set up on behalf of Gage, her dad. Juliette's lawyer said in court he needed time to review, quote, "a substantial amount of information from the prosecution." He wants Juliette to get bail by the next hearing. So what is this, next week or so, this May 7th date? So we will know by May 7th or so if his bid to get Juliette bail is successful or not. Something tells me this family has a lot of money. So even if they set a high bail, they'll probably be able to meet it. So Chief Deputy District Attorney Wendell Emerson, the office spokesman, wouldn't comment that day on this case. But people did walk into courtroom number 5, obviously a lot of people, to attend Juliette's hearing. But her lawyer did speak to the Modesto Bee by email saying this case should not be prosecuted as murder. And he's claiming Juliette was not trying to flee, like she shouldn't have that charge. She had planned to surrender later on in that morning that she was arrested. So they had the arrest warrant out there and they did that nighttime warrant visit. Obviously, they wanted to kind of catch her off guard or catch her in a time where they know she was there. People were afraid. She's off in San Francisco. They're like, is she about to get on a flight and leave the country or go somewhere where she can't be extradited? What's the deal? But her lawyer is saying such an accusation is not only unfounded, but appears intended to inflame public opinion and provoke undue scorn. Now, just yesterday, Thursday, April 24th, 2025, I finally receive an answer to my FOIA. I get the criminal complaint. They gave me that. They gave me the arrest warrant. I previously found the police dispatch, but they would not give me any body cam videos yet. On Thursday, just yesterday, a deputy district attorney in California sent me the below 4-page criminal complaint for Juliette Marie Acosta. And these are the saddest words I found therein. Quote, "The defendant left the vehicle while the child remained in the partially submerged vehicle." So apparently it was only partially submerged. I don't know how difficult it was to get doors open, if they had to break windows, what they had to do. She did not render aid or stay at the scene to ensure the safety of her daughter. While the child was suffering, the defendant was located taking a bath in a nearby home. Now, if it was only partially submerged, but I don't know if the car or SUV was flipped, and if it was, that's just even worse, because if it had gone in maybe like this and only the water rose up to here, maybe Reagan could have survived. But you think if it were flipped and the water rose up to a certain level, maybe that's why the child perished. And Juliette being nearly 3 times the legal limit, according to what's going around, it was Brandon who even saved Juliette. So if she hadn't been rescued herself, I don't know if she would have had the wherewithal and the awareness to even reach back there and try and get her daughter out. But the charging documents go on to say the child was 4 years old. She did not have the ability to remove herself from the vehicle. She relied on her mother to care for her and remove her from peril/danger.
I can't get it out of my head, so every time I close my eyes, that's all I can see is the little girl coming out of the water.
This witness that was interviewed by the news said Juliette was kind of just standing there, either on top of her vehicle or nearby the vehicle somewhere, just staring at her. There was this woman, I guess, who was like, "Are you okay? Is your child still in the water?" People were desperately asking, at least this woman was, desperately asking Juliette if she was in danger or asking about her child. And Juliette just stared at her and said nothing, according to this woman.
They just started screaming that they need somebody else to help them because there's a baby in the car.
So I also requested the body cam videos from March 8th, 2025, and from the day of Juliette's arrest, which happened more than a month later. But can you imagine any body-worn camera videos of Juliette, if she was still there when responders arrived with any body cam videos going, if she's just standing there with a blank expression the night of the accident? Now, I don't know what footage exists from that night of her arrest, but I'm sure we'll see it eventually later once this goes through a trial, if it goes through a trial, once they're able to release any of the information. So at first, Juliette was out on bail for her DUI charge, but we know she was served that no bail warrant later for that new murder charge. So however, in this case, CR 25004-531, the state of California versus Juliette Marie Acosta. This was their response to me regarding the public records request. In part, we will not be releasing any additional documents or records. So I understand that all entities are different. Some, while the investigation is going on, they'll give you maybe a booking photo and a charging document, the arrest affidavit, and that's it. Others, Florida, they're like, here's the videos, here's some interviews, here's the arrest video, here's the transport video. This other small town in Ohio, I need to go to the post office today about a recent man's arrest that's kind of going viral. So I'm getting his body cam arrest. They're like, sure, send us $200 if you just want the body cam. Send us a check for $300 if you want the body cam and the dash cam. They're really using that new law in Ohio to charge us up to $750 for body cam. But it's fine because I'm like, fund the police. They have to edit these videos. They have to get out privacy information. Anyway, it's a smaller town, so I have to go to the post office and literally send them a physical check. At least they accept that. And a self-addressed stamped envelope for them to mail me back a DVD. Like I literally had to go buy a DVD player to hook up to here. For those small town places that still just put things on DVD, they don't use Dropbox or Google Drive or evidence.com or whatever. I'm saying all this to say it varies by state and even by jurisdiction of what they will give you in crime cases. So the Daily Mail started digging into Juliette's relationship with her baby's dad. The Daily Mail is calling her a killer mom already, who allegedly threatened her child's 27-year-old father. His name is Gage Heron, with this following text message, quote, "You could fight all you want, but you'll never see your daughter again." Now that's pretty damning. That doesn't mean that Juliette did this on purpose. And I'm not trying to go too soft on her. I kind of like staying neutral if possible. I try not to rant and rave against people who are still just accused, their only charge, but obviously she made the worst decision in life, and I keep wondering why people want to get so blackout drunk. Why? What was she self-medicating? Perhaps all this that she's been through. Like the incident that got her kicked out of high school where she beat up her bully and allegedly slammed the girl's head against the ground or something. The girl was hospitalized. Now Juliette's going to describe an allegedly abusive relationship with her baby's father. There's this photo where Juliette can be seen on the right. She's pregnant back in 2020. I guess she was only 21 years old back then. And her tumultuous relationship with Reagan's dad has his brother wondering, did she do this on purpose? So the Daily Mail says weeks before a California mother allegedly drove drunk into a canal and left her 4-year-old child to drown, she delivered an ominous warning to the girl's father that said, "You'll never see your daughter again." That's what his family is telling dailymail.com. So Juliette left the scene, and the fact that she was found taking a bath is one of the reasons that makes this case go viral. It just sounds so flippant. You have this horrible accident, your daughter is in danger, in peril. As a mom, you're not standing there at the edge of the canal like, "Did you find her? Help me, go get her. I'm going to jump in the water and find her." It wasn't any of that. It was like, "Oh, I'm just going to go take a bath." But these remarks she made to Gage happened during an argument. They've been going through this 4-year brutal custody battle. At first, Gage's brother is saying he didn't consider that a literal threat. Like, "You'll never see her again." He didn't consider that a threat. But now that Reagan really has gone off to be with Jesus, remind myself she's in the arms of Jesus. She's in heaven now. She's having no worries, no pain. She's playing up there. Now that Juliette has been charged with murder, her baby's father and his brother are wondering, okay, I guess, was this on purpose? It says Gage and members of his family don't believe this was some drunken accident. They believe she did it on purpose. Gage's older brother Chase told the Daily Mail on Monday, "Yeah, we all do. You don't put your kid in a car and then drive drunk like that for no reason." She's a very spiteful person, he continued. So Juliette told Gage, "You'll never see your daughter again." So Chase is 29 years old. He's the brother of Gage. And he's saying, I mean, that literally came from her mouth. They were talking and he was telling her that there's a court date on a certain date. And that's when she replied, "You could fight all you want, but you'll never see your daughter again." And then just a few weeks later, here we are, he says. That's what the brother Chase says. He lives in Hickman, and he lives just a couple miles away from where the crash happened. So that was his niece. Digging into the paperwork linked to below, the second-degree charge accuses her of, quote, malice aforethought murder. But Juliette has not been charged with premeditated murder. So she's been charged with a second-degree charge of murder. But if she were charged with premeditated murder, that would be first-degree charge. And that involves more of a deliberate and planned type of killing. I had to look it up. Premeditation refers to, okay, here's a plan. I'm going to commit this act. While malice aforethought is more broad. It encompasses various mental states demonstrating either an intent to kill or inflict great bodily harm or just a reckless disregard for human life. And I think it falls more into the latter category. Not necessarily that Juliette said, yeah, I'm planning to take my daughter in this car and drive it into that canal and leave her there because I don't want her father to have her. I can't honestly say that was on her mind. I have no idea what was on her mind. But Juliette's defense lawyer spoke to the Daily Mail and he said this fatal crash was nothing more than a tragic accident, and he offered up some new info kind of excusing or explaining the crash. He's saying there may have been debris on the road that contributed to the crash. Now, we don't know that. I've seen a photo of that night where you can see the SUV partially submerged and a rescue worker in there. I've seen something on the road. You see some kind of debris. I don't know where it is. There, like, is he trying to say something was in the road and Juliette planned to turn, but she had to swerve and ended up in the canal? I don't know. But he's saying, it is my understanding there is evidence of glass on the road prior. What kind of glass? How much? Is he trying to claim that Juliette was trying to get out of the way of the glass? I think once we get to court or once we see more evidence, of course, we will see the car forensics, the Burlow report. We'll learn how fast she was going. It reminds me of the Mackenzie Shrilla case, Did she ever try to brake or did she just go straight up? Did she swerve? What was going on? The lawyer said there are also indications that Juliette blacked out after hitting the water. He said, I believed when she was pulled from the car, she was not conscious. So that's where we get the news or the thought that Brandon was the one who pulled her with the deputy from the car. Maybe it was Brandon first and then the deputy showed up. I don't know the order. But the lawyer wants to, of course, explore all possibilities of when she plunged into the cold water. Did she have hypothermia? Did that impact her brain function? Was she so cold, her immediate thought was, I need to go warm up. I'm going back to my uncle's house to get in a hot bath. Not like, I'm going to escape it all. I'm going to hide in the hot bath, or I'm going to just take care of myself. I don't know. I'm trying to get all the facts here. Her lawyer said, we have to get over the public's outrage in wanting to persecute her as if she intended to do this. Let's just wait for all the evidence to come out. I do like doing that because there are certain really hotbed cases. If I would just mention the one in Frisco, Texas, which I've been watching, I like to see real facts. Of course, rumors can end up being true, but I want to see what is actually on body cam, what's actually in the criminal complaints, what evidence is actually there. So the lawyer went on to say, you have a 26-year-old mother who is absolutely devastated that this happened. Evidence will tell us if it was a misjudgment, an extreme misjudgment. But there was no intention, so he's already saying she didn't intentionally do this. Extreme misjudgment? Yes, he's right. Choosing to drink nearly 3 times the limit? I mean, it's so preventable.
I just wish moms would think twice before they drink and drive.
I mean, how easy would it have been in this huge, beautiful home for Juliette to tell her aunt and uncle, can Reagan and I just go to sleep over here? Can we just stay here for the night? And I'll take her home in the morning, or there's so many other options. Or if anyone who was sober, I don't know if anyone recognized how drunk Juliette was, but that's sad too. That's a whole nother story too, about who knew what and when. But it's so preventable. You go to a birthday party, you know you plan on drinking, you know you plan on getting drunk, just make arrangements to just stay there. I mean, of course you shouldn't be getting drunk anyway, especially if you have a 4-year-old in your care, but if it happens and you make that decision, if there's a spare bedroom, a couch or something, a little pull-out mattress, wherever, a little 4-year-old girl, you guys can hunker down and just be safe for the night instead of, I'm going to take my 3 times nearly the legal limit drunk self in an SUV and go down this road where she hit something. Apparently, we saw in one video, like she hit something on the left. So how's her lawyer going to explain that before she barrels straight into the canal with her little daughter? Anyway, he's claiming there was no intention, and the Daily Mail is saying the crash occurred only 600 feet from the home of Juliette's uncle, Brandon Angle, in Hickman. That's where she had been celebrating this birthday party. Now, according to Reddit, Brandon Angle is married to Juliette's aunt, Allison Acosta. And social media has a whole bunch more to say about him, which I will not mention in this video, and just history. And anyway, you can go read on Reddit. So it's saying before she actually reached the canal, she was supposed to turn left on Canal Bank Road, but instead she drove across the road up the embankment and right into the canal. Now her uncle Brandon, he was home. He heard the crash. This is how severe the crash must have sounded and how close the homes are. He ran over to try and save Juliette and Reagan from the upturned vehicle. And he was able to get Juliette out, but he could not get Reagan out. I mean, after all, it had to be so difficult. Dark, overturned vehicle. He somehow gets Juliette out, and I'm assuming up out of the water, or where did he put her? And then trying to unbuckle those car seats and upside down, and anyway, Reagan was trapped in the vehicle. She was eventually pulled out by a California Highway Patrol officer with help from Brandon. In court during her first court appearance, I believe this would have been her first, her arraignment, Juliette just sat silent and somber. They call it with straggly bleach blonde hair during her brief court appearance. A few dozen family members filled the rows to offer support, and one of them was her grandmother, Kathleen Acosta. She teared up when she was asked about the fatal crash. It made her tear up. Her grandmother said, "It's just a tragic accident." That's what it was. A tragic accident, nothing more. We could have lost 3. We lost 1. She was crying. She was saying Juliette and Brandon basically made it out, but Reagan didn't. Now Chase, that's Gage's brother, he also told the Daily Mail that he was home when the crash happened. They must all live near each other, a lot of them. He said, "I heard the sirens go by that night when I was laying in my bed, and I thought, man, I know a lot of people out there. I hope it's not someone I care about." So he's mourning the loss of this niece he barely knew, and he did attend the funeral last month, Reagan's funeral, with Gage. Now, this is so ironic. Gage spent years and years and years fighting for custody, only to receive it the day after his daughter died. Since Juliette was under arrest, the court granted Gage burial rights. So that was the end of their 4-year custody battle. The court ruled, respondent Gage Houston James Herron shall have the legal authority over Reagan Herron's body and disposition. They had that mediation, I guess the mediation date that Gage was trying to tell Juliette about when she was like, "You'll never see your daughter again." It says the mediation hearing scheduled for May 6th, 2025 at 8:30 a.m. is hereby vacated. So sad. Reagan's gone, so there's no need to have this custody battle hearing. Instead, May 6th, that hearing's not happening. Instead, the next day, May 7th, her mother will have her arraignment. So the Daily Mail digs deep into the court battle, this family court battle between Gage and Juliette. It happened right after Reagan was born. I don't know what went wrong, but you can read all their paperwork about Juliette She won full legal custody, and she got this restraining order against Gage. And he was only granted periodic supervised visits, so there has to be a reason why the courts did that, I just have to say. She applied for the restraining order in 2020, and she accused him of all types of verbal, physical maltreatment, including during her pregnancy, after her pregnancy. You know, in the documents, she talks about the names he would call her, claiming he smashed objects, he shoved her to the ground, he pinned her against a wall, leaving her bruised. So I wonder, the people who are defending Juliette and saying, you don't know what she's been through, that's probably this. Maybe they're talking about this relationship, which of course is sad. No one wants to be a victim of this type of violence, but at the same token, Reagan should not have suffered for it. You know, I just wish Juliette hopefully had gotten some kind of counseling. I just feel like she was probably trying to drink her troubles away. And you know, that never works. After Juliette and Gage broke up, he did play a role in Reagan's life. He spent several hours a day with her, but according to Juliette, Gage was putting his daughter at risk because he had angry, impulsive behavior and supposedly lived in some filthy, dangerous situations with no food or milk for the baby. Juliette wrote back then, I'm concerned for my safety and our young infant daughter's safety, particularly after Gage becomes aware that I'm seeking orders related to child custody and visitation. I know that's a real fear for people, and how ironic this situation turned out like this. She got the restraining order against Gage, claiming all these accusations against him, putting the daughter in unsafe situations, and look how it ends up. Reagan was likely the most unsafe with her mother. But Gage was denying these accusations that Juliette made against him. He called himself a doting father, willing to make changes when pointed out. And he also took a hit at her parenting. He was claiming another time she got drunk and she had to do the pump and dump her breast milk because of the alcohol toxicity in her breast milk. So, you know, with these cases, it's always going to be just back and forth. He said, she said. You have to just maybe the truth is somewhere in the middle, but you have to rely on any evidence to figure out what is true. But anyway, Gage lost his custody battle and he was trying to get, you know, in Reagan's life. He didn't just leave. Whatever's true or not, he kept trying to get visitation. And the Daily Mail even reached Gage. He actually once worked for an Acosta family business. I don't know which one, but he wouldn't talk about the case. He said he was trying to stay focused on bringing a new child into this world. His girlfriend now is pregnant, and he's already been interviewed multiple times by investigators, so we'll probably get to see those interviews someday. But he said, I told all my thoughts to the DA, so they have my written statements. So Reddit is just going crazy over this case. One moderator had to write, locking this thread. It's turned into an ugly conversation with obvious Acosta apologists defending things like drinking and driving. I hope no one is defending that. I mean, people might be defending Juliette and they might have a heart for her because they know her, they love her, or they know what she's been through, but you can't defend drinking and driving. You know, you can defend, okay, she's been through a lot. Maybe this is why she was drinking. Maybe she was self-medicating, but in no way would that ever excuse her getting into a car, an SUV in that condition, and especially not with a child. Now Juliette has no bail. If she's convicted of all the charges listed in the attached documents, she could face life in prison if she's convicted of murder. Now, the other charges are vehicular manslaughter, driving under the influence of alcohol causing injury, permitting a child to suffer under circumstances likely to cause great bodily injury or death, as well as resisting, delaying, or obstructing a public officer, peace officer, or EMT. There's other charges in there too. You can read them all at the below link. My question is, I wonder which charges will be dropped. You know, sometimes they get lessened. Where will this whole case pan out? So Juliette, next time we expect her in court is for her arraignment hearing again on May 7th, 2025 at 1:30 p.m. local time. Unfortunately, there's probably no cameras in the courtroom. Last time I checked, the GoFundMe reached $22,500 raised. Someone named Trace Thomas was organizing the fundraiser for Gage Heron. It says, I'm here to help Gage and his family raise money for the unexpected expenses due to his 4-year-old daughter Reagan passing tragically over the past weekend. If you can help in any way, it would be very much appreciated. It says the Heron family is overwhelmed with support from the community. They're expressing their gratitude. They're explaining any remaining money that has been donated after expenses will be donated back to the community on Reagan's behalf in hopes to prevent incidents like this from happening in the future. Thank you all again. They pray that justice is served for Reagan. Me too. 1 John 4:2-3. By this you know and recognize the Spirit of God. Every spirit that acknowledges and confesses the fact that Jesus Christ has actually come in the flesh as a man is from God. God is its source. And every spirit that does not confess Jesus, acknowledging that he has come in the flesh, but would deny any of the Son's true nature, is not of God. This is the spirit of the Antichrist, which you have heard is coming and is now already in the world. So I had to cover this sad case because I've been just so interested in learning what happened. And I'm grateful it was brought to light. I'm grateful for the social media sleuths who just wouldn't let it go, or just people in California or people who knew her or know her. And they just didn't want to see her be able to get away with a DUI felony. I don't know how much time that would have gotten her. And, off on bail and waiting for trial at risk of fleeing, even though her lawyer says that was not her intention, and, just Reagan to be forgotten about. Did Juliette intentionally drive into that water to do that to her daughter? Maybe not. I don't know. I know she intentionally got in that SUV way too drunk and should not have been driving. It's just so sad that her daughter paid the price for all the human mess, whatever happened in her relationship, whatever abuse there was, whatever she was mourning. I'm so sorry and sad that she did it that way. I wish she could have found a better way to heal herself and move forward. Was this vindictiveness? I don't know. I mean, that's what Gage's brother is thinking. It should be a pretty heated case. I just hate that a child is at the center of it. A child took the brunt of all these adult problems. So that's it for this case. Stay tuned. I'm still, of course, waiting on much more information in the Stephen Stearns case. We saw that hearing the other day. It was so frustrating the way the audio was, and at least we got to see the detectives testify. We got to see Stephen give his little testimony. Hopefully the judge will rule any day now that hopefully he won't throw out all that evidence. And of course, I'm waiting for more updated case information for Stephen Stearns coming to me. And again, like I said, I'm headed off to the post office to get body cam videos in a different case. You'll see that coming up. So there's a lot in the queue, and they start coming in when you least expect it one day. Sometimes I'm just like, oh, what is this? I didn't even know what this was. I forgot I requested it. So thank you so much for watching all this. We will definitely keep an eye on the Juliette Acosta case because I want to see Reagan get her justice. I want anyone else, young women like Juliette who are grieving or mourning the loss of a relationship gone bad or making it out of a horrible relationship. I don't want them to drown their sorrows in alcohol. Maybe some people might, you see the videos, shots, and that's not where it's at, especially if you're planning to go get in a vehicle afterward. Just don't do it. Just do not do it. Thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned. I plan to have much more on different cases, but I really wanted to get this one out. We can just watch little Reagan get her justice. Take care.